Hello, everyone, and welcome to the LittleHorse Java Quickstart. In this video, we're going to get you started with LittleHorse 0.7.2 in under 5 minutes. So let's jump right in. This isn't really a video about what LittleHorse is. It's about how to get started very, very quickly. So I will show you that I have not actually installed LittleHorse on the system. Actually, I've gone to great lengths to uninstall it. I will show you that I don't have the LHCTL command installed, nor do I have the LittleHorse server running. So first thing we're going to do is install the LittleHorse command line. Over the course of this video, we're going to install the LittleHorse command line and the LittleHorse standalone image, which is great for local development. And once that has been done, then we're going to run the LittleHorse Quickstart workflow in Java and inspect it on the dashboard. Recently, as in earlier today, we released LittleHorse 0.7.2, which is the final release before LittleHorse 1.0. This is because we are confident that our API is now stable, nothing is going to change, no more breaking changes coming up. And that means that LittleHorse is now ready to be used in a production environment, whether you use LittleHorse open source, or LittleHorse platform, or LittleHorse cloud. We're confident in the stability of the LittleHorse server right now. So as you can see, I installed LittleHorse control, LHCTL, using Homebrew, which works on Mac or Linux. Have not quite tested it on Windows, but that's all right. I don't think my dad would get mad at me for not supporting Windows. Anyways, if you don't have Brew or Brew doesn't work on Windows, you can also install it directly using Go. The link or the code to do this is in the README of the LittleHorse Quickstart Java repo, which you can find in the video description or in the documentation on our website. So, and yes, by the way, this is being recorded on a Zoom meeting. I am a software engineer. I'm not a marketing guy. This is from an engineer, two engineers from my desk to yours. So nothing too fancy here. None of this marketing stuff. Anyways, so now that we have the LittleHorse command line running, let's install the LittleHorse server. This command bit will run our development-focused standalone image. And what that does is it runs a Kafka broker and controller in the same process as the LittleHorse server and the LittleHorse dashboard, all in one container, which gives you basically everything you need for a minimal LittleHorse installation. It's not a production-ready image because this is intended for local development only. In a real production LittleHorse server, obviously Kafka and LittleHorse are separate systems. You'd have to have some form of authentication, but this is great for local development. So now that the command has been run, if I do docker ps, you should see the LittleHorse container is now running. And here's the cool part. LHCTL version should show you that the LittleHorse control is on version 0.7.2 and the LittleHorse LittleHorse control is 0.7.2 and LittleHorse server is also 0.7.2. Now in the past, before this release, this is where the installation would stop. However, we are now a lot further along than that, and we have the LittleHorse dashboard. So if you navigate to localhost 8080, you should see this screen, which shows an empty LittleHorse dashboard. This is a new feature released in this recent release, which is a dashboard that allows you to inspect the progress of your ongoing workflows. So now let's actually get to running the workflow. We have here in the quickstart workflow.java defined the most simple possible workflow in LittleHorse. It's the absolute hello world. What it does is it defines an input variable called input name, and we add an index on it so you can search by it. And then we execute a task called greet, passing in that name as a variable. I'll show you the greet task in a minute, but first, let's deploy the workflow and the task definition. I'm going to navigate into the Quickstart repository, and I'm going to register the workflow using the command in the documentation on the website. So I'll run this command. It's going to compile. Java takes a while to compile, but other than that, it's great. And now we have seen that the workflow has been registered. So I'll show you two things. Number one, the old way using LH command line, and in the new way using the dashboard. The old way is never going away, but it's what you had to do before the dashboard. We're first going to look at any tasks that have been deployed. Recall that in LittleHorse, a task def is a definition of a task that can be assigned to a computer. And we have one task defined called greet. Let's look at this task def. And we see that it has one input variable, which is called name, and it's type string. And that makes sense if you look at the code of the greet task, which is a Java function that takes in a string called name. So now let's go back to LittleHorse dashboard, refresh the page. Oh, now what do you know? We see that we have a greet task def. Let's click on this task def, and we can see here that we have a task with one input name. There have been no tasks actually executed for this task definition, which makes sense given that we haven't actually run it yet. But we also have this Quickstart workflow specification. A workflow specification is a template for a workflow that runs in LittleHorse. We can see here that there's one step, which is execute the greet task, and then the workflow finishes. That makes sense given how simple the workflow specification is, wherein there's only one line, which is, we define the input variable, which you see here on the side, and then we execute one task. So that's the workflow spec. Now let's run it. So we'll go back to the documentation here. We're going to run the workflow with the input name set to OB1. So I have copied this command and I'm going to run it. And we see that the workflow has now been run. So we'll go back to the workflow specification here, refresh the page. And we scroll down, we see that the workflow is now running. So this is in production, you'd see a lot more workflows and you can filter by their status. So for example, if we search for completed workflows, there's nothing, but we see this one in the running column. So we click on this workflow run and it takes us here. Now it looks like the workflow is right here. Why is that? Well, the reason why it's here is because the task is in the scheduled state. The task has been scheduled. It hasn't actually been completed. Let's go to the task definition and see what that page looks like. If we look here, we see that the same task run is also in the scheduled phase. And why is that? That's because the task is on the task queue, but there's no worker actually executing it. So to execute it, we want to start a task worker that is going to use this Java function and execute this Java function every single time there is a task scheduled on the task queue. So to do that, we're going to run the command in the documentation to start the worker. So we copy this command to run the worker, and we run it, and that should start a task worker, which starts polling for tasks on the LittleHorse server. And we see here it already reported the task, and the workflow should be completed when we go back to the dashboard. So we go here, refresh the page, and what do you know? The task has been executed, the workflow is completed. We got hello there, OB1. Which is, if you're actually really paying attention, I should have used General Kenobi, not hello there, but that's all right. That concludes the very quick start demo. If you look into the documentation here, there's a lot of advanced topics you can do that show you ways